One of the top questions I get by people who are getting ready to file for divorce is, what's the court going to do with my money? How are things going to get split up? Essentially, the net is it's going to split it. Pretty much the court's going to split up your stuff pretty much down the middle. Now, there are a few exceptions to how the court will split up your money. That is, in Texas, we have fault-based and no fault-based divorce. So no fault-based divorce, let's talk about that first. That just means it's no one's fault. We can't communicate good. We're going to get divorced. That's it. Okay. That's how most people, get divorced. That's what they plead. That's what they tell the court. Now, the fault-based exceptions, the one you've heard of the most would be infidelity, like they're cheating on me and that's the reason for the breakup of the marriage. There are some other exceptions that I just don't ever hear getting used, like cruelty and things like that. Proving those is really, really hard, so that doesn't usually happen. So technically, if there is fault that's proven, a court can award a disproportionate share. That just means more money to one person than the other person. And the idea would be the person who did the cheating is going to get less money than the person who didn't do the cheating, right? That's how it can happen. In reality, it doesn't really end up making that big of a financial difference in most of the circumstances. Like I recently heard one of the courts in Central Texas says that if it's like a one-night stand kind of cheating thing, they don't even want to hear anything about it. They'll never give a disproportionate share based on that. That's like one of the local judges said that. But generally speaking, the court is going to split your stuff down the middle, whatever is both of y'all's and community property. To understand how a court will divide your stuff in a divorce, you really have to understand the concepts of community and separate property. Here's the thing. The way I always explain this is, remember in school whenever we would do number lines and you've got like -10 way over here and +10 way over there with a 0 in the middle. Okay, so I want you to think of your date of marriage as the 0. And everything to the left of that happened before is going to be considered separate property. Any of the money or any of the stuff you brought into the marriage will be deemed separate property if proven by clear and convincing evidence. It just means real good proof, not I promise, judge, that won't get you there. Now, everything after the date of marriage, once y'all two are married, bought or acquired during the marriage or as a result of your toil, that's going to be considered community property. That means it's both of y'all's and subject to division. Now, here's the thing. When dividing up your money, your house, your bank accounts, the courts are going to effectuate a just and right division. What does that mean? It's like equitable, kind of fair, which usually means 50-50. Now, here's the thing. The court cannot award the separate property of one spouse to the other spouse. So if you had a decent bit of stuff before you ever got married, it's going to be really important in your divorce that you can prove it, because that won't get split. It's the community assets that will get split. Think about all the money you earned at your job, stock awards, houses you bought, that lake house, a boat, a motorcycle. All of that stuff is going to get split. And probably it's going to be 50-50, 51, 52, 48. I mean, maybe a little bit different, but for the most part, 50-50, because then the judge will be within their discretion with a just and right division of the marital estate. If you're getting divorced, you may already know that the court is going to split up your stuff, but you may still be asking, what does that actually mean? Are they going to divide the motorcycle in half like King Solomon with the baby? No. Basically, what's going to happen is your legal team is going to put together an inventory and appraisement. Okay, I'll tell y'all this. One of my first divorce cases, they kept telling me I needed to make an INA, and I was like, what's an INA? So in case you're asking, what's an INA? You're in good company. I was a lawyer and asking the same question, okay? But really what that means is an inventory. What's all your stuff? An appraisement. What's it worth? So you're going to put that into a spreadsheet. And then you say, oh, here's the motorcycle and here's what it's worth and here's the debt. So here's the net of what it's worth. So say you've got let's do a motorcycle. You've got a motorcycle and on Kelley Blue Book or whatever the way you find the value says that motorcycle is worth $10,000, but you have $5,000 in debt. The net value of that asset is $5,000. So on your spreadsheet, you get the motorcycle, you're going to have a net positive to your column of $5,000. And he who takes the toy takes the debt. It's generally how it works. So you'll get your motorcycle and your loan and be charged with the $5,000 when the court and your lawyers in mediation are trying to get to an equal balance. So let's do a different example, like a motorhome. Same idea. Here you've got the home, so that's in your inventory. Now you've got to appraise it. Let's say it's worth $50,000. And then you owe $25,000. You're going to get a net value of $25,000. See how that ends up working? So you put all of this information in a spreadsheet, and then basically in the spreadsheet, you just start dividing up who gets what until at the end, the numbers balance. The more stuff you've got, the more businesses you've got, the more complicated this gets. But that's essentially it. So let's say, there are several motorcycles in a motorhome. Well, it may take 5 motorcycles to get to the value of 1 motorhome. And to get those balanced, you may take 5 motorcycles and he may take the RV. And it goes the same way with all of your stuff. It's a little more complicated when you're not dealing with just like a little piece of equipment. What about when it's stocks or when it's a house? It's with the house, you've got to, again, name it. Here's the house. What's it worth? What is the debt on the house, the mortgage? But then what about realtor fees to sell it? So you see how it can get a little more complicated. And that's the net equity that's charged to you when you're trying to do the balance. So for the most part at mediation, parties end up agreeing on how things will get divided. I thought for real when I started being a divorce lawyer that I would spend a lot of time like that one meme or like post where these people are fighting over Beanie Babies at a court. I'm sure y'all have seen that. I don't ever do that. We don't really ever spend any time fighting over couches, dishes, things like that. The parties just agree at mediation. Now, if you can't agree on how you divide a certain asset in divorce, what the court can do is order the sale of that asset, and then y'all split the proceeds according to some sort of a schedule. So let's say y'all just cannot agree on who gets to keep the house. Both of you want it, or maybe even neither of you wants it. A judge may order you to list that property for sale, sell it, pay the realtor, pay the whatever you had to spend to get it all fixed up, and then that net $100,000 is subject to division according to either the judge's order or the agreement of the parties of how that money gets split up. So either you're going to agree and you decide who takes what, or a judge will order the sale of the asset, or they'll just say who gets it. That's why you don't ever want to go to court if you can help it. The judge will just say, you get the house, you get 3 motorcycles and the boat. And you're like, Judge, where am I going to live? They're like, not my problem. You came to court. This is how it's going to go. So try to stay out of court if you can, so you can decide who gets what. I'm sure you've heard that in Texas, when you're getting divorced, the court is going to divide your stuff 50-50. But did you know there are 2 exceptions where that may not be the case? One exception that a court may use to not award a 50-50 division of the estate is if you plead fault in the grounds of infidelity. That means you say, hey, he or she cheated on me. I should get more money. And a court can give you more money. If you're ultimately successful, they cheated on you and you proved it. Now, as a divorce lawyer who does this as my job, it doesn't come up as much as you would think in terms of the court actually doing that, but it's possible. The second exception to a 50-50 split would be if you prove that there was cruelty, and that's the fault and the reason why your marriage is ending. This comes up more than you might think because of domestic violence and things of that nature. I think the biggest split I've ever heard of was like a 70-30, where the domestic violence was so horrible by this doctor against this woman who was a stay-at-home wife, and it was horrible. And he got hit hard for that bad behavior. And I'm sure we can kind of all agree sounds fair enough, right? But that domestic violence, cruelty of that level is one reason a court might grant an exception and give you more or make you pay more in the settlement or the final numbers in your divorce.